Hello, welcome to our Friday webinar. We are on with Pamela Clark. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today and especially to be speaking about this topic.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about stress-free vet visits, which I mean, this is I mean, I can't imagine. Sometimes it's just the thought of getting your bird in a carrier stresses you out, having to take it to a vet. So, I'm sure there'll be some excellent takeaways that I am really looking forward to
Thank
learning
you.
about. And so, if you're just joining us, we're going to talk about stress-free vet visits. So, I think this is a topic that, we haven't done this before or anything close to this. So,
No, I don't
thank
think
you
so.
for thank you for presenting on this.
Sure.
And welcome. I think this is your first webinar with us of the new year.
It
So
is,
thank you
yes.
for joining us. It's very exciting to
Mhm.
see you back.
My pleasure.
If you're just joining us, let us know where you're joining us from. Give us the update on your local weather because it's just fun on the bird community here to hear where everyone is. And if we have time for questions, we'll do them at the end. Use the Q&A button for the questions. Chat feature for your weather report and where you're coming from. And Pamela, you always have a great PowerPoint. So I think
Thank you.
let's
Should I
get going.
just should
Yeah.
I get started?
Um,
Or
yeah.
you want to wait till some more people join?
Okay, we'll wait a little bit. Okay, how about
Okay.
this? I will ask people how how stressed they are and how stressed their birds are. Raise your hand if when the vet visit's coming up. What's if you have a above, let's see, a scale of 1 to 5, if your stress level is on the five, is approaching the 5 side versus the lower side of stress. Just curious because, or you can put it in the chat. Let's see. We haven't used the raise the hand feature on this in so long. Okay, someone's at a 4. Okay, we can use the chat feature for this. So Brenda doesn't mind. She's the one that has to do the behind the scenes here. But yeah. So we got some stressed people here with their. And I'm
Hmm.
curious if it's more on the side. Oh my God, someone has an 8. Someone's off the chart here. So, um, there we go. As you could see, yeah, I would have to say that I think we're trending towards more stress, but I do see someone that says low stress. So there we go. Sorry, we're all over I have weather report and stress levels in the chat feature. Sorry. Should have thought that before. Anyway, all right. Yeah, this will definitely be a helpful topic. So, and that's funny. Someone says me is a stress level of 2, the birds is a 10. Yeah. It's yeah. Um, there we go. All right. Yeah, we do have a lot of questions for you. I think we're gonna have some questions here for you. So I think I'll let you get it
Good.
started, Pamela.
Okay.
All right.
All righty. Let me see here. Go. There we go. All right. Today we are going to talk about the force-free avian exam. Why do I have the word free fear crossed out? Because fear-free is a trademarked phrase. So if any of you were going to start a fear-free avian practice, you would need to call it a force-free avian practice because Dr. Marty Becker is the only one who can use that term fear-free. All right. Why should you listen to me? Please always ask this question of anybody who's giving you advice. They should be able to tell you why they are a good resource for you. So I worked as an avian exotic technician for 18 years, two different veterinary practices, and the first was definitely not fear-free. The second one approached it, and that was just simply because of the way that the veterinarian managed herself and her patients. It wasn't necessarily out of any deep commitment to a force-free practice. And in the first vet clinic that I worked for, it always upset me because the veterinarian did not have very good handling skills or good toweling skills. So he would always borrow the bird, take it to the treatment area, put it in a corner so it couldn't escape, kneel down so, he was blocking the bird's escape, and then he would put a towel around it. And there was usually a lot of screaming and a lot of stress, and it was upsetting. It was upsetting for everyone. I also was a management team member. We had a leadership team rather than a practice manager, and I was responsible for ordering all the inventory. I also assisted the receptionist with scheduling. I hired and trained and fired new team members, and then in addition to those tasks, I also did everything else that a veterinary technician does, which is working with clients in the room, serving as a pharmacist, anesthetist, and lab technician. We had our own pharmacy, and there I'm filling a prescription at the moment. At the same time that I worked as a veterinary technician, I was maintaining my own practice as a certified parrot behavior consultant. And I can tell you, it is not uncommon for people to struggle with parrots who are very fearful. And the early origins of that fear were vet visits. I had one client particularly who got a first bird, and then that bird died very suddenly right after she got it. And so when she got her second bird, she was so afraid that that bird was going to die that anytime she thought that there was anything wrong, she rushed the bird to the vet. So this bird had, and it was a little green cheek conure, and this bird had multiple vet visits that were terrifying. And I don't think she ever did get that bird to step up on her hand again after that. So it's a really difficult problem because the fear that develops as a result of vet clinics is not just associated with one thing. It's not just associated with you. It's about the carrier. It becomes about the car, the vet clinic itself. And so the best bet, of course, is to not allow that fear to ever develop. But historically, veterinarians have underestimated parrot intelligence and their sentience, their emotional lives. I think the reality is that most avian vets haven't lived with parrots, and if they haven't lived with many of them. And the assumption historically has just been that they'll just shake it off. Parrots will just shake it off. There's not going to be any lasting effects. But we know that there are lasting effects even with dogs, right? Working as a tech, there were some dogs that were so terrified to come inside the vet clinic that they would urinate and defecate as soon as they came through the front door. That is criminal. And we know that our parrots are not domesticated, so they're going to fall victim to scary experiences with even harsher repercussions, I believe. And then also, veterinarians historically have very little behavior knowledge. So they don't really have a grasp of this process of how fear develops in a parrot, and then how difficult it can be to dissipate that. And veterinarians are always pressed for time. That first vet clinic where I worked, it was just go, 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 go. I mean, if you, we had all these time limits for everything that we had to do. And our veterinarian was very much into keeping on schedule. And so that meant that we sacrificed birds' emotional well-being in favor of getting the job done and getting it done as quickly as possible, assuming that that is what the client wanted. So, as I'm working as both a technician and a behavior consultant, I got really lucky. I was approached by Barbara Heidenreich and Dr. Annalise Stronk and Dr. Alicia McLaughlin, who both practice up in the Pacific Northwest. And I was asked if I would like to collaborate because there was a company, there's their logo, Fear Free. It was run by, or is run by Dr. Marty Becker. And they had already hired individuals who built a dog program and a cat program for fear-free veterinary care, and now they wanted people who would write for them a parrot fear-free program, which we did. We produced an excellent module. I don't think it's being offered anymore. I tried to find it right before I prepared this presentation, but all I could find were earlier references to it. It may be that there just simply was not that much of a demand for it. So what's next? We're in a bit of a bind now, aren't we? We know for sure that we have to have force-free medicine because the standard vet care that is offered for birds, especially the way in which birds are restrained and handled in the clinic is absolutely unacceptable. Uh, so we would think that given the fact that that program was available for several years, we might be able to identify an avian veterinarian, right? Well, that would be wrong. I don't, I think it's very hard to identify an avian vet that you want to go to, much less finding one that is amenable to fear-free practices. So initially, I was so excited about putting together this fear-free program, and I've been disappointed. Why? So why would vets not jump on the chance to turn their practices into fear-free practices? I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think that number one, it's because it is such a gigantic revolutionary change that is going to impact every single aspect of clinic life. Scheduling has to be done differently. Appointments are going to take more time. Technicians will need more training. You need bird savvy staff, and you require it is going to take a commitment from every single staff member to commit to a fear-free practice. We even came up with scripts for receptionists to read because if we just look at that one role, that of the receptionist, I think you're all probably pretty familiar with it in a standard vet clinic. Well, in a fear-free practice, that receptionist has to send you the paperwork ahead of time so that your vet is not experiencing distress as you fill it out in the clinic. She might also ask you to keep your pet in the car so that it's less stressful than waiting for the vet visit to start inside the clinic. They might have to coach a client on how to get a parrot into a carrier. I mean, it is really a completely different experience when practice is committed to fear-free. So, like I said, my initial optimism has pretty much evaporated. Um, I don't think that you're going to get that commitment. And I don't think that there's much motivation for vets to adopt fear-free methods unless they have their own deep ethical conviction that that is their path. Because it requires an almost unrealistic overhaul of clinic practices, number one, and then owners may not even appreciate the approach. When we developed the Fear-Free program, we were very aware that a lot of owners would not want this because it takes more time and everybody's busy rather. So, however, despite the difficulty of achieving a fear-free experience, we need to. There is no doubt that we have to commit to this because the fallout from fear, anxiety, and stress is serious. The stress response itself is defined as a set of physiologic or behavioral changes that occur in response to a stressor that is perceived as an actual threat and that causes emotional or physical trauma to the animal. Well, our parrots are not domesticated, whereas our dogs and cats are. So they are even less prepared to undergo the trauma of restraint and other things that may be done in a vet clinic. Also, they're prey animals. So there has been a lot of damage done in the past when veterinarians attempted to towel parrots by kind of swooping in. I think even the approach used by my first vet, even though he was down on the floor at the same level with the bird, it was clear that that bird was traumatized as he was being handled. And then parrots are neophobic. They're afraid of everything new. So what is a parrot gonna, how's he gonna handle going into a vet clinic where every single thing is new except for you? The physiological effects of stress cause there is a fight or flight response that sets off a hormonal and chemical cascade that impacts all body systems, even to the point where it can alter lab results. Stress, especially repeated stress, decreases immune function, and there are some species that are prone to stress-induced illness. It also affects the ability to perform known tasks. So what that means is that you might get a parrot into the clinic and he may not look that stressed, but he may not actually be able to respond to cues that you're giving him. Like if you ask him to step up or if the vet does, he may literally not be able to do that because he is so stressed. There are also severe behavioral effects of stress. Fear memories get stored and then they are recalled quickly whenever the bird finds itself in the same environment. They don't get over it. Fear memories build and build and build, and chronic stress responses can lead to long-term behavioral changes. Repeated vet visits 100% contribute to chronic fear and phobic behavior, assuming that the standards that have been in place are followed. And the end result is caregivers avoid medical care until late stages of illness. I will admit to you, uh, my friends listening, that I'm very reluctant to take my own parrots to a vet clinic because of this. And I could even argue that I'm a technician and can restrain my own bird. But there is very little sensitivity in the industry to the impact on parrots of less than gentle handling. I don't know if any of you remember Dr. Sophia Yen. I do. She is no longer with us, but she was a gift to the behavior community when she was with us. And she wrote once, by restraining pets in a forceful, crude, or unskilled manner, you could be breaking your promise to do no harm. Such handling can make pets behaviorally worse and even lead to aggression and ultimately euthanasia. Now, she did most of her work with dogs, but parrots do get euthanized for aggression, so it's not 100% outside the realm of possibility. Okay, so we know that restraint is stressful. But there are many other sources of stress associated with taking your bird to the vet. You may have to use force to get him into the carrier. He may not be used to being out of the house or riding in the car. He certainly is not used to strangers. And then the environment itself in the vet clinic is going to introduce a great deal of stress. So if we just step back for a minute and look at the goal, it has to be this, that every veterinary clinic provides a minimally stressful experience for the bird and at the same time sets the stage for improved future experiences. There is no way to accomplish that unless veterinarian and client partner together. And my hope had been that vets would take this program that the four of us wrote and create a fear-free practice and then educate their clients about why fear-free is better and why they have committed to fear-free protocols. That is not what is going to happen or what the future holds for us. But let's just look for a minute. You need to know what a fear-free visit looks like, right? We can throw this word around, but what does it really look like if there is a force-free approach? One thing is You're going to be able to take your bird right from the car to the exam room without stopping at the front desk. That minimizes any stress of being in the waiting room with dogs and cats if it's not an avian only practice. The technician would make sure that the exam room was already prepared and ready. This is very important because parrots their stress levels can increase in the exam room if the technician is opening drawers and taking things out. And, it just gives the parrot one more thing to focus on and be stressed about in addition to the veterinarian right there. And so the exam room should be prepared ahead of time before the bird and owner ever get in there. Tools should be out on the countertop ready for use in addition to treats. One of the vets, I wish I'd included this. It was such a cool idea. She got a rotating spice rack, and every jar had different parrot treats in it. And it was just right out there on the counter, so she could access any treats very easily without having to open drawers. And then the first part of the exam would be a hands-off exam. It's not hard for veterinarians to talk and move around and look at the bird. I mean, you can see an awful lot just from minimally touching the bird. And then restraint would only be used very briefly to examine the choanal cleft in the roof of the mouth and the cloaca. And if during any of that, the bird showed signs of being at an unacceptable stress level, the whole exam would be stopped. Boom, not going to do this anymore. So when we were building the Fear Free program, and I have a chicken in here because some of you may have chickens, and all of this goes for any bird. It goes for chickens too. So if you have house chickens or chickens in the yard, they need vet treatment as well, and you have to protect them from unacceptable levels of fear. So we came up with what was called the FAS scale. The acronym stands for fear, anxiety, and stress. So if your bird has a scale of 0, then he's showing no stress in the vet room, the exam room at all. He's taking treats from the vet. He's interacting with the technician in the vet. He may be talking. He's pretty relaxed. And he is responding to cues. So if the vet asks him to step up, he does. Once the stress level hits a 1, then the bird stops taking treats or responding to cues. So these were arbitrary definitions that we attributed to these numbers. A rating of 2 on the scale means that bird is now seeking to get out of there. He doesn't want to have anything to do with the people in the room or anything else. A fear, anxiety, and stress scale of 3 is designated by open-mouthed breathing or represented by open-mouthed breathing. How many times have you seen your own birds exhibit open-mouthed breathing at the vet clinic when they were stressed? Well, you know what? That's not okay. If a bird hit a number 3, you're done. You're done. We're not going to go forward with the exam, and we have a choice, one of 2 choices. We can decide to go ahead and do the exam using midazolam to help the bird experience it with less stress. Or we're going to send that bird home with a plan for training that would allow the bird to enjoy a vet visit in the future without so much stress. So what is midazolam? Many of you may know it. I think it's used in people also. But it is used to help animals feel calm during medical procedures. It is a benzodiazepine, so it reduces anxiety and creates mild sedation as well. And it can make veterinary handling less stressful and much less frightening for the bird. Now, this is an Amazon parrot who's gonzoed on midazolam. This level of sedation is a little too much. So we call this conscious sedation. This bird is not alert enough to hold his head up. But if you get it right, if the veterinarian gets it right, then your bird would be able to stand with his head up, participate in the exam, but not be stressed, and there would be no fear memories created. And a couple of other wonderful things about midazolam is it can be administered in the nares or it can be injected, either one. And then it can be reversed, which means that you can use another drug to completely erase the effects of the midazolam. And so this one drug is hugely beneficial to parrots. So let's say that you have an Amazon parrot like this that absolutely flipped out as soon as he came out of the carrier. He was just screaming and flying away, trying to escape. And so right there, the decision is made to give the bird midazolam. So, the vet might give him a drop in each nary and then just let him sit for a while to relax. And then if the vet thought that the sedation was too much, he could reverse it a little. Or there's also the option, if the bird is really stressed out in the car, you can choose not to reverse it and just let the bird, come off the drug later on once he's home again. So, what are we going to do? I mean, we have to have fear-free medicine. It is not acceptable for our birds to experience the effects of stress. It's serious. So I don't see any way around it. We're going to have to take the lead. We are going to have to coach veterinary professionals. And remember that we are the consumers. Veterinary care is a service-based industry. That was one thing I loved about the first vet I worked for. He had a lock on that information that we are a service-based industry and therefore we must advocate for our parrots and for their owners. And manufacture motivation for vets. If veterinarians are not motivated enough on their own to provide fear-free medicine, then we can demand that they do. And I don't mean in any sort of aggressive way, but there is a path towards fear-free medicine. And the first is we've got to take the lead in terms of advocating for the visit that we want to have. So that might be calling up and scheduling an appointment and then advising the receptionist about how that appointment is going to go, that you want only a hands-off exam. This is just to get to know you visit. And you want to make sure that this is the sort of environment in which your parrot can have a vet visit that is not going to leave him with fear memories afterwards. So you take the lead. You tell them what you're going to do and what you want. There's no reason whatsoever. And then our other responsibility is to train our parrots so that they won't be stressed by the experience. So if you want to get started, identify a vet. I help people do this all the time. And, you can go to the AAV website. They have a locator function there. I've had a lot of people tell me, and I mean a lot, many, many, many people over the course of my career tell me that there is no avian veterinarian that they can possibly see. But with a little footwork, guess what? There is an avian veterinarian. And so I would suggest that if you have a vet that seems decent enough and you're not familiar with him, then you visit the practice, so first of all, go in there and ask yourself, is this an atmosphere in which I would feel relaxed? Is this an atmosphere in which my bird is going to feel relaxed? If so, make an appointment. But at the same time, again, stipulate you only want a hands-off exam this time. And then you're also going to talk to the receptionist and or the technician about whether they might have any days during the week when they might have an extra exam room that's not busy. If so, then, and it's true, many veterinary clinics have days when they don't have a full schedule and they could easily donate an exam room for an hour or less to you, so that you can bring your bird in there and do training at the vet clinic. That's going to be one of the very best ways to make sure that the bird is calm and accepting of the environment. And then you're also going to have to commit to training at home. And at the same time, you're going to have a conversation with the same vet about midazolam. Does he use midazolam in his practice? Would he be open to using it with his bird if necessary? Would he be open to using it if the restraint caused open-mouthed breathing? That's the only way that we're ever going to be able to get what we want, I think. So here's a little quiz. Does this bird need vet care?
Let's see.
Not sure. Well, so the answer would be yes. Look at that flaky beak. That's not right. The edge of the beak is not as, it doesn't have as much integrity as it should. The area around the eyes looks kind of swollen. The matted down feathers look like there may be drainage from the nares there. Learn to spot the signs. All right, so what are the necessary skills for a vet visit? The first one is targeting. You might not think that would be a skill that we would employ at the vet clinic, but we should. Entering a carrier on cue, riding in the car, interacting with strangers and taking treats from them, towel restraint, getting onto a scale to be weighed, and even possibly opening the mouth for a check of the choanal cleft and wings up in order to be able to check underneath there. So really, all the things that cause stress for the parrot during a veterinary visit and before and after would be the things that you can train. And this is so possible. I hope that none of you are rolling your eyes and thinking, oh my God, I could never do this, because you can. I promise you, you can. Uh, so the first thing to do is teach targeting. Here's a little bare-eyed cockatoo, Ellie. Upon being adopted by Chris Shank, Ellie spent a peaceful week at her house and then started flying and attacking her whenever she turned her back. So she started target training right away, and that was enough to just dispense with that problem. And then, so why would you teach targeting, which seemingly has nothing to do with the vet visit? Because you can use it to teach walking onto a scale. You can use it to teach going into the carrier on cue. Then you can also develop a desensitization and counter conditioning plan for riding in the car and towel restraint. And I can help each of you to do these. You can, hire me for a Q&A or join my community or something. These are all things that people are working on. So what is targeting? Many of you probably know, but I still find clients who have no clue what it is. So targeting is something that we teach to many different animals, zoo animals, horses, dogs, cats, any animal can learn to target. And so for a parrot, it's just the behavior of touching the beak to a chopstick. Now, unfortunately, there's kits out there where you get a chopstick and a clicker and a book. Well, you don't need the clicker, okay? Behavioral science has proven that a behavior is not going to be reinforced unless it is delivered immediately. If you can't deliver it immediately, then you need a bridge. A bridge is just a sound that bridges the time from when the parrot performed the behavior to when the reinforcer is delivered. So look what happens when we're teaching targeting. We present the target stick, the bird touches it, and then immediately our other hand starts coming up. So here's a little tip. Bridges don't have to be audible. Your hand coming up with the reinforcer is a bridge. So when you're training and you're standing right in front of a parrot, you don't need a clicker. The only time you need a clicker is if you're training outside, because the sound carries further than your voice would. And then you need some small reinforcers to get started. And then after the bird can target in one area, ask him to target in another. And even little birds can enjoy this experience. I just think this is the cutest thing ever,
That's adorable.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's quick. He's enjoying it. All right, enough of that. Then getting onto a scale. I'm sure that some of you may not be able to fathom how in the world you could ever get a parrot to just go onto a scale by themselves. Well, you're not going to use this kind of scale for starters. What you want is a low profile gram scale. If you already have a scale like this, you can certainly train your bird to step onto your hand and then step down onto the perch. But I find that this sort of a scale is heavier, it's much more ungainly. And if you have a low profile kitchen scale, you can take it to the vet clinic with you and just ask your bird to weigh herself. So you need a low profile scale and reinforcers. I suggest using a shot glass or some kind of container with a bottom that is small enough that you can hang on to, like this. That makes it a lot easier to deliver multiple reinforcers at once because you just um, hold the shot glass up, let them take one treat, and then pull it away again. So it works much more easily than if you're having to manipulate the treats in your fingers. And so you just put the scale on a flat surface. Your bird already knows how to target. And so you just start targeting as far away from the scale as the surface will allow you to be. And then you just gradually target in ever decreasing circles until you finally hold the target in such a way that the bird will step up onto the scale. And then the last step might be to feed for position. Mainly, let's say your bird has 1 foot off the scale. You might move the treat so that he comes closer to the center of the scale. But this is very doable, really. Any of you could do this. And then think how cool you'll look when you go to the vet clinic with your bird and you take him out of the carrier and say, oh, he'll weigh himself. And then you just give him the cue and he does it. You can also use targeting for entering a carrier on cue. I prefer wire carriers for this method and for birds, transporting birds in general. I think that being behind wire allows birds to feel safer. I don't like plastic dog and cat kennels because the bird is more likely to get car sick and the bird is more likely to interpret the carrier as a nest cavity. Um, so again, you just work on a flat surface. You've got treats in your shot glass. You start asking the bird to target um, a distance away from the carrier. So you're just asking him to target. And then maybe you move an inch closer to the carrier and ask him to target a few times. Move it another inch closer to the carrier. So using very small approximations, you just have the bird perform that behavior of touching the target stick as you get closer and closer to the carrier. And then you can insert the target stick through the side of the carrier so that the bird can target to get over the threshold. And then you can even toss the target stick into the carrier if you need to get him to go to the very back. So again, carrier training is easy. So now he still needs to learn how to ride in the car. Birds will get a great benefit out of just going places with you. So, one of my favorite recommendations is load the bird up, put him in the front seat with you, go to McDonald's, get some apple slices, park, and eat apple slices together. Or you can take the bird to visit your friends and family, put the arm on them to be patient for a visit like that. If a bird does get car sick, ginger tea is an effective remedy for that. I think it's important to cover the carrier partially while you're in the car as well, if it is a wire carrier. Um, Parrots have, well, we all have something called a fovea, Fovea, which is a concentration of receptors in the eye that allows you to focus. Mammals just have one so that we can look straight ahead. Parrots have two, so they can look at their food, focusing straight ahead, and at the same time be able to see predators that might be in the environment to the side or the back. And my hypothesis is that when birds are in the car, that traffic passing by that side fovea could be extremely distressing. So that's why I think it's important to cover all but one side, just let the bird look up to you and then gradually work up to longer rides in the car. For towel training, there's a few different ways you can begin with this. And this is the last that I would do. I might not even towel train my bird, I might just work it out so that I could towel him and then hand him to the bird. I'm not sure, but so the one way you can do it is you can make a towel tunnel, right? Roll up some bath towels, stack them up, and then put a towel over them. So you've got a tunnel. And then you run your hand from one side of the tunnel through to the other side and start offering your parrot treats. And as he eats them, you're going to slowly, as he allows it, back him towards you so that he is choosing to enter the tunnel. And then once he readily enters the tunnel, you start to put a hand, just a little bit of pressure on his back while he's eating reinforcers. And then you gradually move to the point where you can put a towel over him and then pick him up with it. You can also try an approach like this just to desensitize the bird to a towel. And I've also seen Barbara Heidenreich model a process where she would sit in a chair with a towel over her lap and have the bird on her lap with the towel. And there'd be a pile of treats on the towel on one of her legs. And as the bird ate the treats, she would just lift up the corners of the towel, first just slightly, then higher, and higher ever more, until it was possible to lay a corner of the towel over the parrot. So, again, if you train all those things, you're not likely to have to discuss with the vet conscious sedation. But it's nice to know that it's there if you need it. And I personally would not go to any avian vet that would not consider using midazolam to mitigate my bird's stress. Sometimes it's used with another med called butorphanol. Both are fully reversible. Again, you can give injections or administer them intranasally. They can be reversed, and most importantly, they prevent the formation of fear memories. So let's say your bird is not trained up to get on the scale or be in a towel. I don't think that's so terrible because you've got this. If you have a vet who will use midazolam to mitigate your bird stress, then I would take it. That would be just fine with me. So there we have it. I'm sorry if you came to this presentation thinking that I was going to give you lots of tips about who the fear-free avian veterinarians were and, how you can go about getting a visit. But the sad reality is, and I don't fault them for this, there's little motivation for veterinarians to go fear-free. If I had a standard practice and I was able to fill up my appointment slots, and make money, I wouldn't do it because literally the entire staff has to be retrained and you have to put in hours and hours of training with staff who may not be very savvy when it comes to handling parrots. So I think it's worthy. I think that we have lived for too long with outdated ideas regarding parrots and their care. And this is an area where there are no good answers. There just aren't good answers. But I think we can make a real change by just scheduling a hands-off exam. Your vet can't refuse to perform it, right? If you're going to pay the exam fee, the office visit fee, then it's your business what you do during that hour. It's not his business. He doesn't have to restrain your bird forcefully. And if he demanded to restrain your bird forcefully, I would go to another vet. So that is the status of force-free medicine currently. Although I will say, I know that there are pockets, like Shauna Roberts, I think. She helps train fear-free practices to both clients and vets. So keep pushing for it, please keep pushing for it. And, even if you have no intention of ever taking your bird to the vet, still teach your bird targeting, teach him to go onto a scale, teach him to allow restraint in a towel or to go into a carrier, because it is through training that you form the best relationships with your parrots. So there really is no downside to this. And all you need is 5 minutes a day.
Great. Hey, question about are there any side effects for the medications that you mentioned that you're aware of?
Well, every medication is going to have side effects. The side effect of this medication is that your bird goes to sleep. That's the side effect. And then he wakes up. Are there any lasting side effects? Like, is he nauseated for a week or is he sleepy for 7 days or something like that? No, no. I've used it many times and it's just amazing because you give it to a bird, all of a sudden they're sedate, they're not scared, they're able to listen and perform behaviors for the vet clinic. Um, and then once they're reversed, they just are like, I mean, it literally is like an inflatable doll, coming back to life.
Okay. And then another question about when the vet needs to draw blood. Like, is there um
Yeah, I didn't go over
yeah.
that in this. So when we originally prepared the Fear Free program for Dr. Becker, we had training protocols for teaching blood draws, teaching parents to stand still for a blood draw, teaching them to allow injections, and we even wrote up training for a bird to willingly accept anesthesia by putting his head into an anesthesia mask. Um, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Um, it was just I guess when the vet needs to draw blood and he needs
Oh,
to
yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So, um, I don't know that you have a lot of choice about that, quite frankly. If blood needs to be drawn, blood needs to be drawn. Some veterinarians sedate birds for drawing blood. I I would not go to a vet that sedated my bird for drawing blood because a vet should be skilled enough that he can easily draw blood from a parrot without sedating them. Um, I think you're just stuck. The first vet I worked for, he removed all the birds from the room for anything, including blood draws. The second vet I worked for, she did blood draws right in the room with the client. She was amazing. And she just had like the most peaceful demeanor. It was very effective with the birds. But I think that, if you have done all the training, then your bird will need to be restrained only for maybe 2 minutes for a blood draw and to check choanal cleft and the cloaca.
Okay. It would just how it I know another time when your bird like goes in a carrier and goes to get handled is for grooming. So Like when people bring their birds in for like bird stores or for grooming services, is it like kind of the same kind of questions that you would ask them on how they handle birds and for grooming when get nails groomed, for example?
Well, this is a bit of a can of worms, okay? So I wouldn't take my bird anywhere to be groomed unless it was a vet clinic, because you don't want lay people who may not be trained well to be handling your bird for anything like a wing trim or a nail trim. And I say that because I once had to restrain an Amazon parrot that had a dislocated leg that happened as a result of a technician restraining this bird and not knowing what she was doing. So injuries can happen. Um, but I think that you could accomplish it very quickly, anything that you needed to with the parrot.
Okay, okay. Oh, and then so Pamela, a question about
Yeah.
often I've had this my own experience where you bring your bird in to the vet and you get prescribed a medication, and now you're at home with your bird and you have to like syringe
Yeah.
feed it, and
Yeah.
the bird, what if it's open mouth breathing and it's highly stressed, what do you do in that situation? Do you like how do you address that when you're just extremely stressed your bird out, you can't get the medication into them like someone that's more used to handle, like what's your advice for that?
I don't like to see birds toweled and given medication at home. So I try and help owners find a way to get it into the bird without having to restrain them. So often we use a food carrier. It's really not possible to, well, I don't want to say it's not possible because somebody's going to disagree with me right away, but I would say that most people cannot syringe train a parrot. Um, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat.
Oh, sorry.
Um, that's okay. Um, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought again.
Oh, and just I mean, because sometimes you get medication that's prescribed that
Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, so you can effectively give, if it's a long-term medication, I think that really is your only option, is to discover some food carriers that you can use in order to get the medication into the bird. Um, Many times you can facilitate getting meds into a bird if you just don't anticipate a problem. For instance, I had to give Medicam to a bird. Now, I was in luck because Medicam doesn't taste that bad, but rather than assuming I was going to restrain her, I just went up and showed her the syringe and eased out a drop and she licked it. She liked it. So medications that taste good, you don't necessarily have to restrain your bird. You can you can do it in a way like that, setting yourself up for success. Maybe having the bird right there with you. Maybe you share, you know, I don't know, a piece of food together or something, and then here, take this medication. So sometimes you can just finesse it because there is no good solution. I'm not going to recommend that owners towel their bird inside of a cage and then restrain it in order to give medication. For one thing, they can't do it. They're going to get bitten and they're going to destroy their relationship with their birds. So I try and find the right answer for any situation. Like, for instance, can the compounding pharmacy make it a better flavor? Can they double the strength so that you're giving it a smaller dosage? Sometimes little things like that can make all the difference in terms of getting medication into the bird. But yeah, I cannot in good conscience ask somebody to towel their bird twice a day using force in order to get medication into them.
Yeah. Would you recommend kind of syringe training, like just getting
Yes.
the bird used to just something it likes from a syringe?
Yeah, for sure. And people have been commenting on the chat that some of their birds are syringe trained as well. And so the way that you would go about the syringe training is that you just, once your bird knows how to target, you can use a syringe just the way you use a target stick. And most birds catch on right away because they have touched the target stick and they just assume automatically that the syringe is going to bear the same results for them. Once a bird will touch a target stick without, or a syringe without hesitation, then you fill it with water because a syringe looks different filled with water than when it's empty, and parrots are neophobic. So then you get him to the point where he will touch the target very easily with water in it. Then you squeeze out, the third step, squeeze out one tiny drop and ask him to touch the target. So that is the point at which you're going to get kind of a bad reaction because he is not used to having liquid be on the end of the syringe. But you get past that. And then you work to where he will take water out of the syringe. And then you're going to go to something that tastes good, but that is dilute, because you don't want the syringe all of a sudden to be a real different color, right? Because since they're neophobic, that could put a hitch in your training if all of a sudden the contents of the syringe are bright red and he's used to it being plain water, right? So we might use dilute apple juice for that. And then you continue to use, so syringe training, you're not going to work on it for 3 days and have a syringe trained bird. This is something that you have to keep up and maintain all the time. And so you would work through a few different substances, maybe dilute baby food or something. And then at the very end, you have to start introducing unpleasant tasting things. So you would, maybe go to very dilute apple cider vinegar, then 50% apple cider vinegar, then full strength apple cider vinegar out of the syringe. This makes the bird bulletproof when it comes to taking medication that is needed.
Okay. And you're also
Right.
you're doing like you're not like a blast of liquid in the beak because of aspiration, right? Like you're
Yeah, you never want to squirt a whole lot of liquid into the bird's mouth because the liquid can go down the trachea if the timing is wrong. But if a bird is syringe trained, they willingly drink it off the end of the syringe. So there's no need to shoot it into the mouth. That would only happen if you were trying to restrain the bird and were trying to get the medication into them as soon as possible. So I think that syringe training definitely would be the way to go, but it often is just not the case. So, and back to toenail trims, I realize I didn't fully answer that. It is my personal belief that parrots don't need nail trims. Most parrots don't, especially if your bird flies. I haven't trimmed my bird's nails in 30 years. They wear their nails down when they are flying around and moving around. I also have noticed that on every bird I look at, the outer toe, the outer toe is longer. The toenail is longer than this toe. I believe that's by design because when they take off, they would have an advantage if that outer nail had a little bit more grip there on that surface as they exerted, momentum off of it. And so I think it's arrogant to think that we know how short nails should be. I think the main driving force behind a lot of nail trims is sharp nails, but it's easy to teach nail trimming, and you may not even need to teach it. So what you would do for nail trimming is have the bird be inside the cage. You have a pair of kitty cat nail trimmers, not the pinch ones, but the little, they look like scissors, except for they're tiny, look like little kid scissors. And you're going to have food that the bird really wants. So you show the bird the food on the outside of the cage at like maybe his beak level, and then you slowly raise it up so that he climbs up the cage in order to keep eating the food. And while he's eating the food, you just come in and clip the very tips off the nails. Easy peasy. We have restrained our birds for decades for so many different things when it wasn't necessary. And it's high time that we honor their intelligence and their emotional lives by treating them with greater respect, frankly.
Oh, that's a great advice. Wow, I'm glad you added that. And yeah, and so just like the biggest takeaways from today's presentation is I like that you can kind of set the tone when you're like you have a the ability to kind of set the tone for when you do your vet visits. You can have a say in that, and that's a very powerful takeaway from today. Any other like big like so? What do you want people to walk away with when from today's thing, and they've got like their upcoming annual their bird's vet check coming up this year, for example?
I want people to be brave. I think that we're all afraid of each other these days. We don't meet each other's eyes in the store. COVID started it and it has continued. And everybody is afraid to talk honestly to the people in their lives, and this has to stop. So I want everybody to be brave and just ask the question, may I please schedule an appointment and stipulate that the exam that is done will be hands off? I do not want my bird restrained. Can we do that? What do you think they're going to say? Heck no, we don't want your $85 for the office visit. No, they're going to say, why not? And then, you can talk to the vet while you're in there. So it's a perfect plan. Bring the bird with you, bring favorite treats and toys, let the bird come out of the carrier and just walk around. Even if the bird sits on your shoulder the whole time, he still is getting used to the sight of an exam room and the sight of that man that you are talking to. And that would, in the bird's mind, create relationship between you and the vet, which would be reassuring to the bird. And you can spend that hour talking to the veterinarian about how necessary fear force-free medicine is for parrots because they do develop fear memories. And if a parrot develops a severe fear memory as a result of vet visits, that bird's entire life could be compromised in a very negative way. So this is serious stuff. It's not like, oh, I'll do it next year. No, do it now. Do it now.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. It's so great when you come on. I love
Thank you.
all these thank yous. That was amazing. And yeah. And also just, I like the empowerment. That's just really good advice. Okay. Now you got your vet visit, your annual visit's coming up. Now you kind of have a different thought process direction that you could
Yeah, yeah.
consider. So
And may I say one more thing?
yeah.
There's a great deal of fear involved in making a vet appointment. And in addition to the fear, there's the expense, there's the inconvenience. It is not a good time taking your bird to the vet. So why should you? He's not sick, right? Why should you take him to the vet? Well, here's an insider tip, okay? So if an avian vet in the area sees you once a year. You bring your bird in every single year for an annual exam. You follow recommendations. So let's say the practice closes at 6 o'clock and at 5:45, your bird breaks a blood feather and blood is gushing. If you have been to see this vet once a year, then he's going to say to you, come on down, we'll wait. If you have not been seeing a vet once a year and this happens, the receptionist is going to say to you, "Oh, we're so sorry. We close in 15 minutes and you're going to need to go to the emergency vet that doesn't have an avian vet on staff, so good luck."
Wow. Okay.
You need to be in relationship with a vet. This is not like getting your car serviced, right? You don't need to have a relationship with your mechanic. It's nice if you can, but you need a relationship with a veterinarian who respects you. So you demand respect. You take the first step. So many of us go into vet clinics like victims, like we've got to just suck up whatever happens. No, we don't have to do that. We are the consumers. And we can demand the kind of veterinary care that we want for our birds. And we can do it nicely in partnership with a vet.
Oh, okay, that's inspiring. Thank you. Wow, it was great to have great to have you on today as
Thank
our
you.
as that was wonderful. Next, sorry, that it's really good. I like this. Again, everyone just and you know what? We had everyone stay on like through the whole thing. We had like a big crowd today, so this was a very important
Yeah,
topic.
that's crazy.
Yeah, no, I was just watching the numbers and I was like, no one, everyone stayed with us the entire. I mean, people's
Yeah,
lunch hours are at stake here, so that's
I know, I
it's
know.
Friday. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. Wow. Okay. Next Friday we'll be on with Dr. Lamb, and she's going to go over her personal experience with hormonal birds and teach us some things then. So join us next Friday with Dr. Lamb. And thank you again. This is an amazing presentation. Totally appreciate it, Pamela. Um, as you can see, everybody in the comment chat section is very.
It's always an honor. I never take it for granted that people show up to listen to what I have to say. So I'm very reinforced. Thank you all so much for coming. It was a lot of fun. I
Great.
enjoyed it.
Well, can't wait to see what you have next time for us. So, all right, guys,
Right.
on that note, I want to wish everyone a wonderful weekend. All the best to you and your flock. Stay safe. Until next time. Thanks, Pamela.
Bye-bye, guys.